Hello everyone, and today I'm making a rant video about the RTX 40 series. So, Nvidia just announced the RTX 40 series, consisting of the RTX 4090 and a 4080 and a 4070. I refuse to call it a 4080, it's a 4070. And yeah, so I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts about it, and we'll have some more flight sim in the background, so it's not too boring to listen to because it would have just been a talking head video, and I don't really do heads, like talking heads, and so here's some gameplay. Anyway, so the thing that I was let's first start with the good things because I don't want to be too much of a downer because I already know what this video is going. But yeah, so. The good things about RTX 40 series. Yeah, ray tracing performance is a lot better. Apparently it has 16 times the detail. Last time I heard that phrase, well, we'll see. But, yeah, so RTX 40 series has much better, much more efficient ray tracing, and honestly, if that wasn't the case, I would be more surprised. Because this is the third generation that has actual like proper ray tracing cores, and like when you are this early into a technology, having like massive performance increases per generation is more normal than not. So it was kind of to be expected that RTX would become a lot better. It will probably keep getting a lot better for the next couple generations until it is so good that even low-end cards can play RTX without much of a performance penalty. That's kind of what I'm expecting. Like, Nvidia is in this for the long run. They knew that 20 series was gonna be trash for RTX. Like, if on 20 series it's a gimmick, on 30 series it's a less of a gimmick, it's actually usable on 30 series, but you still lose a lot of performance. On 40 series you probably still have a performance penalty, and then maybe by the time you get 50 or 60 series it starts to become a territory of, by now you can actually play RTX without losing massive FPS. But we'll see about that. So, yeah, RTX is a lot better, which I guess everyone should have been expecting going into it, because it would have been a bit weird if it wasn't. Second thing, DLSS 3. Sounds very cool. They actually demoed this very game, Microsoft Flight Sim. I'm playing this right now on a GTX 1070. That's not even overclocked, and I'm getting 45 FPS. So, yeah, that's not the best frame rate ever. Admittedly, I'm close to the ground and have the settings rather high. But, yeah, like, in this game you don't read that many FPS. So, yeah, so, like, anyway, this game apparently gets DLSS 3, and you can get, like, 100 FPS if you're close to the ground, which I just, like, that's cool. Your graphics card can do that. I just have a feeling that if you're close to the ground, your graphics card is not the problem. I feel like especially if you fly through big cities, in this game, the CPU tends to become the problem, not the graphics card. But we'll see. Like, new CPUs are coming out as well. Maybe those take care of that. But yeah. Yeah, so those are the cool things. Like, RTX is a lot better, so we're getting closer to it becoming just a normal thing. Though only for Nvidia. I don't know what AMD is doing, which is an entirely different topic that I might also get into. But yeah, RTX is better, and DLSS 3 sounds kind of cool. Like, apparently it's a big performance jump, and yeah. So apparently it's pretty good. I'm not entirely sure how good the visual quality is going to be of it, because like it is entirely generating new frames based on AI. So for like a game like Flight Sim, that might be fine, but if you play like CSGO with it and your AI guesses wrong where an enemy is walking, then you might have a problem. Though in CS you don't really need DLSS 3 because you get enough FPS anyway. So let's say Apex Legends, which is actually kind of hard to run compared to CSGO, maybe something like that. So we'll see if DLSS 3 is the godsend that Nvidia is selling it as, or if it's closer to DLSS 1 and just like a blurry mess mostly. I don't really think it's gonna be that bad because I would argue they have learned their lesson by now. But who knows? It's Nvidia. They, you know, big corporations doing dumb things is not unheard of. So yeah, DLSS 3 might be good. It might not be. We'll have to see. Maybe. Yeah, just wait for the Gamers Nexus review. Is basically my answer to that. Okay, so that's the good out of the way. Now for the bad. So they didn't specifically state it, but they showed us a graph that basically made the 450 watt TDP official. I don't know why Linus Tech Tips said that it's the same TDP as the 3090. It's not. The 3090 is 350 watt. This thing is 450 watt. That's a difference. That's not the same. Like, sure, there were custom 3090s with 450 watt, but those were custom. And that's like, so the thing is, the TDP, like that means the Founders Edition and the reference card are 450 watt for the 4090. There will be custom cards, and if you look at previous generations, like a 3090 reference 350 watts, custom 450 watts. That's roughly a 30% increase. So if you use the same logic, you take 450 watts and increase it by 30% for a custom card, that's not 450 watts, that's 585 watts. And that's getting very close to the rumored 600 watt TDP. So yeah, I am pretty sure we are going to see like high 500 watt power limits on some of the custom cards. I am pretty sure we will see that at some point. Maybe not with the cards that come out at launch. Like the few images that they showed kind of looks like all the cards are using the same PCB, because like they all have the same dimensions and the power connectors in the exact same place. So I don't know if you're gonna have custom PCBs or like good custom PCBs at launch. But yeah, like there will be custom PCBs. I would be very surprised if suddenly custom PCBs are completely dead. So yeah. So yeah, the TDP is going up and going up and going up, and that's just great, especially for people living in Europe. I think I once calculated how much a 3090 costs you per day. It was like between like 1.5 and 3 euros a day. This thing, well, this is gonna cost you like 4 now. So after like less than a year, it has paid for itself in power bill, just like that. So yeah, it's just wonderful. Like, this alone is why I'm skipping 40 series. Like, I skipped 30 series because of the power consumption, and 40 series is worse, so I'll be skipping this one too. Like, at this rate, I'll keep my 2080 Ti for another 5 years or so. And honestly, I might not even have an issue with that, because, like, thing is, my PC at home is 1440p, high refresh rate, and there's only 2 games that can actually max my card. That's Flight Sim and Ark. Both don't need very high FPS either. And then the games that can't max the card, it's just, well, I'm getting my FPS without the card at 100% utilization. So like the 2080 Ti is like coming up on 4 years old, and I can't even fully utilize it yet. So if you ask me, I'll be keeping this card for a long time. So yeah, I'm not really worried about, oh, I'm not going to be able to buy a GPU because the market's going in a direction that I don't like. So like, I'll have time to wait until people become more reasonable again to like make cards that actually, like, a reference card should not be more than 250 watts, 275 at most. And then custom cards, yeah, sure, go over 300, but like, just keep it under 400, please, because that's just unreasonable. Like, not just because power bill costs, just because like you're pulling so much power. You know, if you have enough people running those cards, it's gonna become an actual climate problem. But yeah. So my main complaint for the 4090 is just the power consumption. It's just, I've been complaining about 30 series power consumption, and 40 series is worse. What more do I have to say? I am not a fan of it. Like, yeah, it's just bad. So yeah, The next thing would obviously be the price, but I'm not even complaining about the price of the 4090 because the 3090 Ti already set a precedent that anything ending in 90, especially ending in 90 Ti, is just a Titan without the Titan features. So, yeah, you'll be paying way above 1,000. Like, I'm pretty sure in Europe it's gonna be like 2,000. Like, the thing is, if you have an MSRP for the US, like right now, $1 and €1 are exactly the same. That makes conversion very easily. But the thing is, in Europe, it's still gonna be more expensive. First off, because we have our 19% VAT always included, and also because like I'm not good at like. I got this explained to me once. I'm probably gonna explain it wrong now, but like apparently there's like more buying power in Europe, which means that cost of living is higher, which means that wages are higher, which means that everything's a little bit more expensive. So yeah. So that's basically the explanation that I've heard and remembered. So yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if a 4090 costs you €2,000. Just because. And honestly, a 3090 Ti was about the same price. So if you really want to spend too much money on a graphics card that's gonna consume 600 watts, be my guest. Like, honestly, they deserve to take that much money from you if you want to buy a card like that. Yeah. And then we get to like the 4090. The only thing that's interesting about the 4090 is I want to see the PCBs, and I want to see Steve and Jay have another overclocking battle, because that's always entertaining. That's the only things that I care about the 4090. Other than that, it's a completely uninteresting product that, like, I might look at some PCB. Like, the thing is apparently, like, I don't know if Buildzoid's gonna do PCB breakdowns. If he doesn't, I might do some overviews. And that might be some 4090 content, just if I see PCBs that I find interesting. Other than that, the 4090 is DOA, in my opinion. Like, bad product, don't buy it. Like, yeah. So let's get to the 4080 and the 4080S/4070, because that's what it is. So another thing about the price is, I think the 4090 exists, well, mostly it exists to be a Halo product, but I think it also exists to justify the price of the 4080, because the 4080 has a $900 MSRP. I've already seen slides for, I think that was France, for a retail store, and the 4090, the 4080 16 gig costs €1,500. That's a clean €600 above the MSRP in dollars. So there you go, €1,500 step down flagship card. That's just, remember when €1,200 for the flagship card was unreasonable? Now you get to spend more on the step down model. Like, yeah, now I feel a lot less worse about buying a 2080 Ti. Like, I bought my 2080 Ti at launch for also over €1,000. So like, I'm kind of guilty of buying an unreasonable card myself. Well, at the time my 780 Ti was dead, and I just wanted to have a card that will hold for years to come, and it looks like it will, because it's 4 years old now, and it's probably gonna hold at least for that long again. So yeah. But yeah, so like, remember when people said the 2080 Ti pricing is unreasonable, and yeah, I know inflation and a global recession's happening, but still, like, it's a tier down for the card, and the difference is like it's the Founders Edition, or like a reference card, and it's more expensive than a custom 2080 Ti was at launch over here, and that was like in the middle of like the availability crisis, and mining was also going on at the time, at least a little bit. So I don't think inflation is the only reason for that. So yeah, 4080, completely unreasonable price. Just don't, like, like again is like in the 30 series, the only cards I would be recommending are like a 3060 Ti and at most a 3070. Like anything GA102 based, just avoid. And it looks like it's gonna be a similar thing with the 40 series, where I just go like, yeah, the 60 and the 70 maybe. Everything else, way too unreasonable. So like the leaked pricing, like 1,500 euros for 4080. That's probably like that's gonna be just a NFE or a reference card. Yeah, don't. Just don't. Like everyone's gonna be going about, oh, the 4090 is so expensive, but I think the real slap in the face is the 4080 16 gig. It's just so unreasonably expensive. And the thing is, because the 4090 is more expensive and everyone's gonna be focused on that, the 4080 seems like a good deal again. Like, yeah. And then there's the 4070, which they called 4080 12 gig because, I don't know, they just really badly want to sell you a 192-bit bus as an 80 class card, because that's what you're getting. Like the 4080 16 gig has a 256-bit bus, which, you know, they've done that before. A 680 and a 1080 had a 256-bit memory bus, that's fine. But we haven't had a 192-bit 80 class card yet. That's like 1060. The 1060 had a 192-bit bus. Now you're getting an 80 class card with that. So, yeah, like I have a feeling that the 40, like they showed in the slides that apparently the 4080 12 gig is like very close to the 16 gig card. But I have a feeling that this will change once you play something that's very sorry, I'm a little cold. But yeah, I have a feeling that this will change once you play something that's a little bit more memory bandwidth starved, because they only showed a very limited selection of games. Like they didn't even show conventional performance, they only showed RTX performance, which I'll get into later as well. But yeah, so the 4080 12 gig is gonna have a 192-bit bus. Like, that's the same that the 3060 has. So basically they're selling you an upgraded 3060 as an 80 class card now, because that's the memory. Like, it's still GDDR6. Well, I guess it's 6X. So that might help a little bit, but like, it's still a 192-bit bus, and it has more cores than 30 series, which already had more cores than 20 series, and those were already memory bandwidth starved. So just like basically overclocking memory is gonna be like just the one thing to do on those things. But yeah, so mainly I'm just upset because they're selling it as a 4080, and like, I don't know why. Why? Why don't you sell it as a 4070? Like, I don't get it. Like, they pulled this before with the 1063 gig, or like the 1030 DDR4, where they sell it as the same card, but then it's actually a lot worse. Because the 4080 12 gig doesn't just have less memory and less memory bandwidth, it also has less cores. It might even be based on a completely different piece of silicon. Like, why is it called an 80? It's a 70. And even that card apparently has an 1,100 euro selling price for an FE/reference card in Europe, which is still unreasonably expensive. Like, yeah. Yeah, like, basically the only thing that's gonna be interesting in 40 series is gonna be like the 50 and the 60 card. Oh, there comes the lag. Yeah, see, this is what I mean. I kinda doubt this game is gonna have super smooth 100 FPS with DLSS 3 if this happens every time you get close to the ground, because everything loads in at the same time. And your GPU usage just plummets, and your CPU is going into a frenzy for a couple seconds. So, yeah, that's kind of the thing with this game. But yeah. Where was I? But yeah, so like, prices for the 40 series just seem extremely unreasonable. Like, I'm gonna be waiting for a 4060 and the actual 4070 because, well, I don't know, at this rate we might get a 128-bit bus on these. Maybe those are gonna be reasonable, but if it's, yeah, it's gonna be like, you know, Nvidia is so not out of touch because we have a global recession, the GPU demand has dropped significantly. Like, there's tons of cheap X mining cards that you can, like, buy. Like, most of these are probably still gonna be working, except for the fans. Maybe you might want to replace those. But yeah, let's make everything more expensive, because it seems like a good time to do so, right? So, yeah. I think you can tell by now that I don't like the 40 series. Like, it's gonna be interesting to watch people overclock these, but I'm not gonna buy one. Yeah. So, 4080 12 gig, if you ask me, is just bordering on a scam, because it might be the... Like, the thing is, they've sold us cards under the same name before that have a worse GPU chip. They haven't yet sold us a card that has a completely different memory system and maybe even a completely different core. Like, apparently there were some leaks that the 4080 12 gig is based on a different silicon than the 4080 16 gig. So it will literally be a completely different card. Sold under, like, the same name, and the only difference is gonna be memory capacity. And, like, do you think people are gonna know that they're getting more different things than just less memory? No, they're gonna be assuming it's the same core and same in everything, just slightly less memory. And, you know, like, 12 gigs gonna be enough for 1080p and 1440. It might even be enough for 4K. Like, I don't know what kind of memory upcoming games need, but from what I can see, for 1440p, like, 10 gigs, maybe even 8 gigs should be more than enough for, like, most things. So yeah, so people are gonna go like, oh, the 12 gigs cheaper, and it has more than enough memory still, and then they just go like, hey, well, it's so much slower, why am I so memory bad and stuff? Well, because you bought a 4070. Yeah. So, those are my kind of thoughts about the different cards. As you can tell, I don't like them. Like, especially, like, unreasonable power consumption, unreasonable price. That's basically my main complaints. And also the absolute, like, scammy BS that they're doing with the 12 gig. And then there's the next thing. So in their presentation, they were very proud of just how much better their card is at ray tracing and how much DLSS 3 is increasing performance. But I might not have mentioned this, DLSS 3 is not coming to 20 and 30 series. You need a 40 series card for it, because apparently there's new hardware in the GPU that's used for it. So if you're excited about DLSS 3, F you, because you have to buy a new card, which you shouldn't do. Don't do it. Like, unless those cards become a lot cheaper suddenly, don't do it. Yeah. So they showed, oh, look how much faster this card is with DLSS 3 and with RTX on than the other card. And I'm just like, well, that ray tracing's better. That's already expected, as I said. And DLSS 3, well, we'll have to see how good that actually is. Like, it might be really cool. It might look like DLSS 1. We have no way of knowing yet. And then again, there's the thing with, like, you need a game that supports it. You can't just use it in every game. So, like, while maybe most games that you play, like, maybe the games you play all support DLSS, then that's good for you. You get a free performance buff. But if you play games that don't support DLSS, well, your card is now effectively slower. And even if DLSS is getting more adopted in the mainstream, there's still a vast majority, like the vast majority of games are still not gonna support it. So I don't think you should always have DLSS on if you do performance comparisons, because like basically it's just an FPS boost feature for certain games, and that just throws off your data. It doesn't change how fast the card actually is. And that's what they didn't show in the presentation. Like, they showed RTX, they showed DLSS 3, they didn't show any conventional games. How fast is 40 series actually in conventional games? And I have a feeling they didn't show it because it's not actually that much faster. Like, the thing is, the 2080 Ti had 4,300-ish cores. The 3090 has over 10,000. Is it more than twice as fast? No. So we've clearly reached the point where cramming more CUDA cores into your GPU does not just give you better performance. Because again, these things are incredibly memory starved. There's a point not too far into the future where we either need a new spec for GDDR or we're just gonna have to use HBM to get enough memory bandwidth to actually use all the clock cycles we have. So, like, yeah, like you can put more GPU cores, but you're gonna have not enough memory bandwidth to keep all of them fed. And now they are reducing the memory bandwidth on their 80 class card. Well, yeah, guess what? So, yeah, I don't think the card is actually that much faster in conventional things. It might even be slower, like the 12 gig. 192-bit bus, again. 3080 12 gig or 3080 Ti 384-bit bus. That's double. That's twice as much memory bandwidth. And those also use GDDR6X, so that's not even an excuse. Like 4080 12 gig, literally half the memory bandwidth of the higher-end 3080 models. So yeah, it might be actually slower than that card. Like, the GPU might be better, and RTX might perform a little better, but in conventional games, good chance it might actually be just slower. And, yeah, like, I mean, if their conventional performance was good, they would be showing it in the slides, but they weren't. So, there you go. Yeah. So, on top of the unreasonable power consumption and the unreasonable price, I have a feeling that the cards won't actually be that much better in conventional, just uses. Like, and that's probably why they're selling it so big on the features this generation, because that's probably the best thing it has about it. Like, better RTX, DLSS 3, those are just gonna be the things to sell it on. The rest about the card is probably not all that great. Reviews are probably gonna also say that the power consumption is pretty high. Like, I don't know why Nvidia thinks it's power efficient. Like, yeah, sure, in RTX it's getting more FPS per watt, but like, that's RTX. It's not a widespread feature yet. You're gonna need another like 5 years for that. Like, the thing is, as long as AMD's ray tracing performance is not good enough, it's not gonna catch on as an industry-wide standard, so you just kind of have to wait until they get it figured out. Because Nvidia does not own 100% of the GPU market share, and if you just only have Nvidia owners be capable of playing certain games, then those developers will be cutting off a huge margin of their profit. So, like, until every card you can get is fairly RTX capable, it's just not gonna become like a standard thing in games. But yeah, so yeah, 40 series. It's gonna be interesting for for extreme overclocking. For everything else, like, it's probably gonna be like an 11900K. Like, good for extreme overclocking, and then just kinda bad for everything else. Like the things it can do better seem mostly like gimmicks to me, and yeah. So yeah, and that leaves us with AMD's situation, because like an alternative title for this video is just like, this is what AMD not being able to figure out their stuff looks like, because Nvidia just goes wild. Like, not that I'm saying the 1600 XT is slow, I'm saying the 1600 XT's driver support is bad. Like, admittedly, I haven't used an AMD card in quite some time. I used an RX 570, and that one was in an awful state for its software support. Like, literally turning the fans off whenever I launch a 3D application. Who would have thought that that's a good idea? The VRM blew up. Like, the card died. And I'm pretty sure because it was overheating all the damn time, because my damn fans turned off. Yeah. So AMD is gonna come, like, I hope that AMD's new graphic, like, the thing is, I hope that they're good. But I kind of have my doubts that they're gonna be able to pull it off, because AMD and software are things that don't go together. Like, everyone knows that the Radeon drivers tend to have problems. That's not the only thing. Ryzen chipset drivers and Jesus, like pretty much every software that comes out of AMD is usually way harder to work with than, well, actually Intel drivers might be worse, but like way harder to work with than like Intel CPU drivers and NVIDIA graphics drivers. That's just a thing. You can't deny that. AMD drivers tend to suck. And they just need to get that figured out. Like, yeah. Also, the overclocking lock on their cards, which they might do again, which is just like, yep, way to go shooting yourself on the foot. But yeah, like, I am hoping that AMD's cards will be powered, like the 1600 XT, yeah, sure, it can pull 500 watts if you want, but you know, you can also tweak it to only pull like 200 and still be like basically as fast as stock. You can't do that on a 3090. Like 1600 XT was very power efficient. You just had to tune it to be like that. So like the hardware was very good. It's just that, you know, the software support is kind of crap. Like the overclocking sucks, and driver problems, and then there was the one hardware thing with the input filter being really crap. Like, yeah, so like my main reasons why I can't just buy an AMD, like if I could, I would just buy an AMD card. But they don't have DLSS, which I use on a somewhat regular basis, like the normal DLSS. They don't have RTX voice. Their Shadow Play equivalent might be good now. Like back when I had my RX 70, it was kind of bad, but I've heard that apparently that one's good now. They don't have NVENC, which I use to render literally every single one of my videos. So, yeah, it's just, you know, AMD just kind of needs to get their features figured out, and then maybe they'll have a chance. Like, hardware-wise, they're doing pretty well. And there we go, loading everything in again. But yeah, like hardware-wise, AMD has things mostly figured out. Like the hardware is good. They just need to get the features working. So yeah, like let it just be known as my plea to just like, please AMD, get your stuff together, and also please Intel Arc release already. Like, we know the first gen's not gonna be amazing, but just, you know, Intel, please, we need more competition in this sector, because otherwise we get things like 40 series. So, yeah. I'm way too high for this approach. Anyway, it's just a simulator, I can do this. Yeah, I don't know how long my rant is. It's probably gonna be like 20 minutes. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of the 40 series. I already wasn't a big fan of the 30 series, and the 40 series just seems like 30 series part 2, but worse. So yeah, I don't like him that much. Like, the 4090 is gonna be interesting to watch for extreme overclocking. Like, I'm looking forward to RipGN, RipJ stuff. That's always entertaining to watch. I'm looking forward to looking at some PCBs. Maybe there's gonna be something interesting this generation. We'll see. And then the rest of the cards, I guess I'll watch some reviews and maybe adjust my opinion of them, but right now my opinion of them is way too expensive and probably not all that much faster than 30 series. Like in conventional things, which is what I think should really matter, because like RTX is like that's what Hardware Unboxed got in hot water with Nvidia with, like, well, because they just went like, well, sure, it's faster than RTX, but how many people actually use RTX on a daily basis? Not many. So yeah, and I think that should really be the end of my rant now. Yeah, just wanted to get in my opinions on the 40 series. Like, I gotta grab that RTX 40 series launch clicks, you know. Yeah, I hope Intel and AMD do better and actually put Nvidia under pressure, because it seems like they're just gonna be doing stuff like this going forward, and it does not look good. So anyway, yeah, thank you for watching. Well, more like thank you for enduring me. And until next time, goodbye.